Like we talked about in the previous lesson, selecting those little clusters can be a little chore in itself, especially when you're trying to move a little quicker and animate as fast as you can. So what we're going to do is build some simple control objects. Now, we don't want these control objects to render, nor do we want them to get in the way of seeing our geometry or our stand-in objects. So we'll go through and create some objects out of wireframes. So essentially what we're going to do is take something like a polygon cube. Okay, and I'll just hit F to frame that up. And then I'm going to take the Create CV Curve tool option box, make sure it's set to linear. Okay, by default it's cubic. And then holding down V, I'm going to snap around this object. Okay, so now I have a wireframe of the top here. I come down the sides. Okay, and I'm going to go all the way around here. Let me undo that last point there. Make sure I get it right on that vertice. Press V. There we go. All right, hit enter when you're done, and then we could select the cube and throw it away. Looks like I had one point that didn't quite line up right here. I can just press V and snap that to position. Okay, so this is going to be a standard cube that I'm going to use quite a bit as a control object. Okay, I'll go ahead and center the pivot. I'll have access to that. There's no history on that, so that's not an issue. And I'm going to leave one off to the side. I make these, and what I'll usually do is I'll export this little guy and then put a little shelf button that will import this little object back in, so I don't have to keep remaking them over and over. All right, let's take this little guy here, press V, and we're going to snap it to the back 3, or this chest bone right here. So I'll press V and middle click and move my mouse just a bit, and that will snap that right there. Let's go ahead and scale this up. Okay, we'll go to the side view. In this position here, we'll go ahead and modify the points a little bit to match the shape of the object that we're trying to build a control object for. Okay, that looks pretty good. Might want to move them down a bit. We might want to move these up a bit, just because this is going to be that upper body control. Okay, let's go ahead and check it from the front view as well. Okay, obviously you need to make it bigger here, so we'll scale these points out. And scale these in just a bit. All right, very good. So what I'm going to do is create a new layer here. And when you're creating new layers, try not to make too many of them. The more you have, the harder it's going to get to keep things easy to find. So just make enough that you need. I usually make a left, right, one for the geometry, one for the upper body controls, and then one that I call don't touch, that I put all the junk that I don't want to be messed with. I'll call this upper body. Okay, make that yellow so it's a little bit easier to see. And then I'll add selected objects. So there's our yellow object. Let's go ahead and do the standard stuff we do, freeze transformations, zero all those out. We're going to call this the chest control. All right. Next, instead of recreating this, we'll just duplicate it. So Control D, duplicate it, activate our Move tool. Okay, and this one's a little tricky. We're going to snap it to the root joint, okay, and then we're going to take the vertices and move them up. Now this is another trick that you can do. Right here the vertices have moved, but the pivot point is still down here at the root. Okay, so a little trick that you can do is there's nothing wrong with doing that. All right, let's go ahead and get this kind of set up here. There's her hip. So we're going to have an ab control up here. So we want to make sure we leave enough room for it. So we're going to go right up to this the first back joint, which is going to be that ab area. Remember, its pivot point is down here at the root. Let's check the front view. All right, obviously we want to make these a little bit bigger to just cover her like that. And we'll make these a little bit smaller, like so. Okay. And that's yellow, so we know it's on the correct layer. It's good to go. If we activate our move tool, you can see here is the pivot, so that is good to go. We're going to call this the hip control. All right. There may be some type of little translates in there. Go ahead and freeze those transformations. Verify that all these are zeroed out and 1 for the scale. Very, very important. All right, next we're going to make the abs control. And this is a very simple object, so we'll just create a NURB circle. Okay. And it's right there at the feet, at the origin. And I'm going to press V, middle click a little bit. There we go. And we'll go ahead and scale this up. Not too big, but big enough to cover her surface there. There we go. Okay, so that's her ab control here. We'll go ahead and freeze transformations, and we'll go to edit, delete by type. And I'm going to go ahead and hold Control-Shift to add that to my shelf. Okay, so I want to delete the history. And we're going to rename this abs control. All right, so we have the chest control, hip control, abs control. The next one that we're going to build is called a hip sway control. All right, and we'll do that by modifying just a simple circle. So we'll go to Create, NURBS Primitives, Circle. Okay, I'll hit F to frame that. And I'll just right-click to go into Vertex mode. And let's select every other control vertice, like this. And then we'll scale them in. So something real simple like that. Nothing super fancy. Okay. We'll hit F8 to get out of that. And W to activate the translate tool. And this guy, we're going to snap that to the hip joint. So we'll press V, snap it right there, and scale it up. Okay, so freeze transformations, delete history, rename this one hip sway. Oops. Let me actually hit S there, hip sway control. All right, so both of these need to be added to this upper body layer. All right, so here's what we end up with. And it looks kind of confusing. You may have to watch the video a couple times to kind of figure out what all the pieces do. But once you get the kind of the system down, it's really easy to see how all these things are all interconnected and how they are all assembled. Now, one thing that we haven't built yet is the back control. And the back control, we're going to create that with an arrow. So just a simple arrow that we're going to draw. So let's go over here to our side view. I'll go ahead and turn on my grid that we turned off earlier. And with my curve tool activated, I'm going to press V and I'm going to snap out. I'm going to hit X to snap to my grid here. Just a simple double arrow. And then I'll resize it here just a little bit. Okay, we'll hit Enter. And I can select these points. We'll scale it down. And we'll just make like a simple little arrow. All right, we'll go ahead and center the pivot. Get that up here near the back. Like that. And then I'm going to hit Insert. And I want that pivot point, instead of to be inside of this arrow, I want it to be right here at this joint, at this IK handle. So I'll press V. There we go. Perfect snap. Okay, hit Insert again to get out of that mode. We're going to freeze transformations. Okay, there's no history. And I'm going to rename this back control. All right, so let me open up my outliner so you can have a second to write down all these controls or make a note of them mentally. I've got back control, the hip sway control, the abs control, the hip control, and the chest control. All right, so we got lots of little pieces here that we've built. Now that they're named and built, in the next lesson, I'm going to walk you through the process of constraining these to their appropriate areas. That way, when you select one of these controls, so for example, when I grab the hip control and I move it, I move the appropriate elements inside of this rig here.